Doesn't mean if you feel you're a goddess, unless you acknowledge that this energy, that goddess energy exists at a higher realm. Hey, namaste, beautiful goddesses. It is Coach Viv here, yogini and mentor. Welcome, bliss babes. Welcome, wise women. So today I just wanted to share with you a short video about what is the divine feminine. And of course, this is from my understanding, but really feel like I'm just going to give you a little background of how I even became aware of this phrase. Many years ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago now, I started to hear from spirit internally that the divine feminine was rising. I literally had not heard that phrase before. It just started sort of repeating and coming up internally for me. What over time I've come to, what I was told also is that it is a balance of the imbalance energetically of the world as it is now, with everything that we see playing out now in the world. I was told that women, individual women as a group of people would begin to rise, and their voices would be more heard. They would be more in positions of power. And so it was fascinating because, as I mentioned before, I told a friend about it, and this was just like, and I basically predicted, I said, a lot of women are going to be just in more positions of power. And maybe this was about 10 years ago now, and it started to happen. This is not, for those of you who may be short-sighted about this, this is not anything against individual men, because the divine feminine is positive for men as well as women. What it is saying is that society has gotten imbalanced in traits that would be typically associated with a masculine dominance. So things like looking at the earth as something that you just exploit and pull what you need from without caring for it or giving back. The attitude that you can take and take by force. Even look at our movies. I talk about that. Like when you look at a lot of our action pictures, right? Our most blockbuster movies are where there's a battle, there's good and there's bad, but the battle is always won by brute force, typically by a form of violence. So instead of anything about cooperation and things like that. So again, and think Avatar as starting to embody this shift that I'm talking about. These qualities are in both masculine and feminine, and the divine feminine is rising to help heal the society. So it has to do and will affect all. It has to do with more compassion for people, more connection instead of division. And so it looks like we're seeing the opposite really coming to the fore. But as I've said in other videos, it's like a pimple. The toxins have to come out and be released before healing can happen, right? Sometimes you'll have a fever because there's an infection, and the fever, which seems bad, is actually to allow the healing to happen. So the divine feminine is not about, I see a lot of people really not getting it and just really cheapening it to be, so they'll make a thumbnail where it's just this sexy woman on the thumbnail, and it's like, oh, it's just about being sexy. That's not what the divine feminine is. Now, it depends on your level of understanding, okay? So the divine feminine does imply a veneration of feminine principles in your spirituality. That's the main thing I also wanted to put out there. It's not just about you, like what does it mean if you feel you're a goddess? Unless you acknowledge that this energy, that goddess energy exists at a higher realm. Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up or give me a yes if you get what I'm saying. To get more into the divine feminine and to really understand it, it implies that you work with the energy of spirit in a feminine form, not just, you might say God, goddess, depending on your background, cultural connection, or even very importantly, who you are drawn to. It implies a worship of, and I hesitate to use the word worship because worship implies there's a real separation. That is not actually the divine feminine aspect. It is an embodiment of and a connection to the divine in a feminine manifestation. And we know this is apolitical. This is just historically in all cultures around the world, there was a feminine. If there was a male god, there was a feminine paired with him. He was not alone in the vast majority of traditions in the world up until a certain time. That leaving out the feminine leads to things like the rise of rape, the rise through thousands of years of it being okay to treat actual women in a certain way because it comes from a certain devaluation of the feminine values and the feminine worth. So again, this is going to be positive for men and women because it's about, so the qualities are creativity. The feminine is always associated with a sort of like an explosion of creativity. And don't just think literally like painting or something like that. Just creating in any realm is typically linked with the feminine. Of course, the main thing that like everyone can agree on is the feminine, in its ideal, in its healthy form is nurturing, right? The mother. So in these religions that I'm referring to, there was often the feminine is the great mother because from the beginning of time, it was seen that the feminine gave birth, and the feminine, looking across species, across life forms, would tend to be the nurturer of the young. So the qualities of nurturing, the qualities of compassion are associated with the divine feminine. So if you want to start to really connect with this energy, it helps to have a practice where you are working with spirit in a feminine aspect, okay? And it can be very, very healing. And again, I would say choose from the pantheon of goddesses that if there's a specific quality or trait that you know that you're weak in, you might want to work with Sekhmet. So research, and I strongly believe, and many people will disagree, and that's fine, they can do that on their channel, that you can choose a goddess from any pantheon that you feel a connection to, and here is why. And this is deep. It's going to go over many people's heads, hopefully not yours. We have bloodlines. When people think ancestors, they often just think, oh, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, or I know like in the 1800s. You have to go from a shamanic and a broad perspective. In a broad perspective, you have bloodlines that span the entire globe. Even if you just take a genetic test, it's going back, like go back. So there is a reason you might feel drawn to these particular goddess from this tradition that you don't actively see yourself as connected to in this life, in this manifestation. So I really encourage you to open your heart and open your understanding. If there is a goddess that appeals to you, you don't have to like prove why you're connected with her. Okay, this is your personal understanding, and often a goddess will start to show up in your life. Think about what qualities you need and maybe just go do some research. Is there a particular imagery that appeals to you? Is there a particular culture that appeals to you? Find the goddess within that pantheon and begin to connect with her. That's my recommendation for thinking about divine feminine qualities. Don't take it from the superficial, and that's what I see some people on YouTube just associating with, like, oh, I'm a goddess, and this sort of exterior, you can have a goddess energy at 80, at 90. It's not about if you're pretty that you're a goddess. You have, and you have goddess energy. That is a superficial understanding of what the divine feminine is about. It is a massive spiritual wave. It's a massive spiritual wavelength that is seeking to create balance in the culture worldwide, because it has to. We have to have the masculine in a healthy way and the healthy feminine. And so again, for those of you who misunderstand it, it's not to denigrate the healthy masculine, but it's that you can clearly see, anyone spiritual can see, that we're in very deep trouble in terms of disconnection from nature, in terms of the way we live our lives, in terms of thinking that technology is going to be what saves us, and separating us from what for millennia has kept us healthy, alive. It's about balance, so that wave of the divine feminine needs to come to the fore, and this will take decades and even hundreds of years, but it's already happening. And myself and many women just independently began to feel and connect and hear this. So do understand this is a deep balancing, and it's like a cosmic level balancing. So I hope this was helpful to hear about the divine feminine, and share your thoughts. I would love to know if you want to share, what do you do to connect into that energy and to create balance in yourself, whether male or female. As I said, my channel is specifically for women, but men need that divine feminine also. It really is not healthy to be one-sided. So we, as I understand it, we typically embody the incarnation we take, that is the predominant energy. So for us women, you want more of that divine feminine energy. And again, especially because the society is imbalanced and the society is denigrating the feminine. So I hope this was helpful, just to continue to deepen your thoughts and your understanding and appreciation of the divine feminine. And watch my most popular video on it. That'll be popping up right now. Mwah. Stay blissed and blessed.